What's up, guys? So today I'm going to help you guys understand one of the most fundamental things about money, all right? And that's how it flows through our economical system, all right? So first of all, here's where it all starts. You got two politicians here. Now, their only goal is to get you to vote for them. So one of the ways politicians are going to get you to vote for them is by two things. One, they're going to try to offer you different things. Say, hey, vote for me. I can give you free schools. Vote for me. I can give you free lunches and things like that. So what the government, think about it. Once these guys get into power, there are only two different ways that they can pay for that stuff they promised you, right? They can pay for it through raising your taxes. Well, it won't work because you and I are going to be out there and outside in pitchforks. Or they can do it through what's called monetary policy, all right? So essentially what the politician does is they then go to the government and they vote for more deficit spending. Now, deficit spending is basically us spending more than what we actually have. So the way we do that is, here's monetary policy. The government hits up the treasury. The treasury then the government then says, hey, we need about $10 billion because that's how much free stuff we promised the people, and that's how we need to basically pay for that. So the treasury then does what it's called issuing bonds. All right. Now, these bonds are essentially debt, right? So they're actually real debt that we owe and our kids will owe sometime in the future, but we'll get to that. So the government issues these bonds, and what they do with these bonds is they do what's called a bond auction. And what they do is they sell it to these big banks here, right? Because these big banks want to profit off the interest that these bonds have to offer. So what they're going to do is they're going to come in and they're going to buy these bonds from the treasury because they want to make money off the interest. But here's the thing. Where did the banks get the money to do it, right? Well, either through the interest they're already earning from consumer accounts, or they hit up the Fed. So what the Fed then does is write checks or put zeros into these guys' bank accounts here, which then they use to buy more bonds from the government. So now what you end up having is a shit ton of bonds piling up here at the Fed, and you'll have a shit ton of cash piling up at the government. Now, congratulations. The politicians now has the $10 billion they promised the people for the free lunches that they wanted to give them, right? So what they do then is they spend the money on all the free stuff, and the money gets into the hands of the public. So what does the public do? Well, this is the second part of how the money is created, all right? Because the first part here, somewhere in this process and during the open market operations, when these guys just generate the zeros out of thin air, that's where the money's created. But here, the next step is where it gets even crazier, all right? So government spends money on public works programs, private contractors. It gets into the hands of the people. Now, what do people do? Well, the first thing you do is deposit the money in your bank account. Now, here's where the money multiplier really takes effect. Now, when you put your money in the banks operate on what's called a fractional reserve lending system. Essentially, it requires them to say, hey, I have a percentage where I have in reserves and I can lend out X amount. So when you put your money in the bank, guess what? The bank has every right to loan that money out to someone else. So one of the main people they loan money out to are businesses. Yes, businesses. So you put your $100 into the bank says, all right, cool, we'll hold your money for you. So on paper, when you look in your bank account, you got $100, but really 90 of those dollars is gone, and it's in these guys' hands to fund more projects that they want to fund. So therefore, within this system here, doubles the money supply, because remember, you still got $100 is sitting in your bank account, but these guys got 90. So a total of $190 in the market already. So now that goes into the money supply. Now, here's where things get really, really freaking interesting, okay? Now, with the money supply, because these guys doubled the cash flow that these guys doubled here into the economy here, well, guess what? Again, there's no such thing as free lunch. So we actually have to pay this back somehow through something called inflation. Now, inflation is another sneaky way of taxing you and me, because what happens is whenever there's an increase in the money supply, prices actually have to rise to meet the demand of the cash and the supply. So essentially what happens is we actually pay for all this stuff on the back end of things. Actually, we don't pay for it now. It's more of like a pay later type of things because we're actually borrowing against our future selves because things are always going to rise. So in the future, things are going to get more expensive, more hard than for all the nice stuff that we want to have right now. So now you must be thinking, wait a minute, there's something missing out of this entire step here, right? You're right. We're missing the IRS. These freaking guys right over here. Man, you gotta love them or you gotta hate them. What these guys actually do is this, right? Guess what? While we're all getting the money from the government and we're getting it through private contractors and shit like that and we deposit it, well, guess what? The IRS takes a little cut of it. It actually takes a cut out of everyone's pockets. And what it does then, it funnels that exact same cash to the Treasury, which the Treasury uses to pay back the interest on the loan, the bonds that we got from these guys in the first place. So, guys, about 95% of your money actually goes to paying interest to these guys that wrote a check to these guys out of a checking account with zero fucking balance in it. These guys have no fucking money and they make it out of thin air. So what happens now? What happens now, right? What you have to understand is that free shit is not free. When people offer you something, when you have politicians talking and saying, hey, we got to do this, there are only a couple ways they're going to pay for it. And that's either begging for more deficit spending or taxing you more. But either way, you're going to pay for it. So what you understand is when you go up and you hear these politicians talk and they speak, you got to look for how are you going to pay for it, all right? Free isn't free. I don't care what anyone tells you. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And the second thing, all right, we give these currencies, this dollar bills, what their value is. We give it to it because think about it. We go back to this. When you get this money, we're all fighting from what's in the same money pool. So when these guys print more freaking money, it dilutes what's already in here. So not only is the value of what's in the money supply diluted, but we're also fucking basically paying for that and we're fighting for the same thing, right? So we gotta understand that the true value of our wealth is our time, is the effort, is the productivity that we give up when we spend our time working 9 to 5 to earn a piece of that ever decreasing pie in this money supply here. So we give the currency its value. We give these dollars their value. And then what you also have to understand is our taxes from you and me, it goes towards paying the interest on these bonds we owe, not to the programs you think that your politicians telling you that it's going towards, because they're already getting you back through inflation, okay? It's not through these programs. Your interest, 96% of it is going towards paying these government bonds that these guys are holding on to. So last but not least, these guys right here, they create money out of thin air, okay? Money, they create these things from thin air, okay? They print as much money as possible. There's no real value to this stuff. And you have to pay that back with real hard-earned productivity. What you guys have to understand is, guys, the more you know about these systems and how they work, the more you can understand how this game is played. The more you can understand that, I say this all the time, life's a game, and this is just one big part of it. Actually, one part of it, because this goes way deeper than this. All right, it goes way deeper than this. This is a game. You have to understand how to play. These guys are basically screwing you, essentially, right? I mean, they're helping you by putting more money into the system. So when you think about it and put it into context, like the $1,200 or the $6 trillion bailout that we got, or the more money that they're actually going back to talk about, you have to understand that free things isn't free. Eventually, at some point, someone's going to have to pay for it. And in this case, it's going to be our grandkids. And that's it.